What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Darium's Competitive Pokemon. Got a little bit of a fun deck today. Going to be taking a look at Tapu Koko, Golisopod, Lurantis. This is a deck that I just made, and it seems to be working pretty well. It's for the upcoming standard format. This is after Worlds, after rotation, so no Verse Seeker, no Hex Maniac, and no Forest of Giant Plants, none of that. So, going to be taking a look at this deck, how it works, what makes it function, and why it might be a decent play headed up next year. So, let's get things started. We start out with 3 Tapu Koko promos. It's that flying flip attack. We've got 4 Golisopod GX, 4 Wimpod, 2 promo Lurantis, 3 Fomantis, 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX, and 1 Oranguru, my favorite monkey. So let's talk about this list, how it works, and why I got these guys in here. First of all, you'll see that we've got Tapu Koko, 3 copies of Tapu Koko promo, who uses his flying flip attack to spread 20 damage to each of the opponent's Pokemon. It's a great cost for just a double colorless. We'll also notice that Golisopod does have some use of double colorless as well. To pull off that armor press attack and his crossing cut GX, you're going to want to play double colorless in addition to that grass energy that he uses for first impression. So double colorless energy does work well in this deck, and because Wimpod has this awesome little nifty ability here, Wimp Out, which gives him free retreat for the first turn of the game, it is actually very, very easy to get a turn 1 flying flip off with Tapu Koko. So this is not my first iteration of a Golisopod deck. I've built a couple Golisopod decks. I've tried them out with a few different partners. I tried Golisopod with the Evolutions for Worlds format. I didn't end up liking that deck all that much. I tried Golisopod with Zoroark, and that seemed to work okay, but I've been the most excited about this version of the deck just because I felt like the 2-hit knockout version of Golisopod, when you're just trying to take these 2-hit KOs and then preserve your Golisopods by using Acerola to heal them or Max Potion and so on and so forth, didn't really seem to be too effective. So I'm trying something different here, and the goal is to get an early Tapu Koko and then flying flip your opponent a bunch of times, and then eventually just come in with Golisopod and sweep from there. So the strategy, start with a flying flip, deal lots of, maybe you could pull off 2, 3, even 4 flying flips, weaken all your opponent's Pokemon, and then Golisopod can come in with that first impression attack and deal enough damage to wipe the opponent's board clean. So first impression reads, if this Pokemon was on the bench and became your active Pokemon during this turn, the attack does 90 more damage. So that's 120 damage for 1 energy. Great energy cost to damage ratio there. I mean, you can't argue with that. So that damage output is fantastic coming from Golisopod. When you add Lurantis' Sunny Day ability on top, you can do even more damage. Lurantis' Sunny Day reads, the attacks of your grass Pokemon and fire Pokemon do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if you have 1 Lurantis set up, then your first impression is doing 140 damage. If you have 2 Lurantis set up, then your first impression is doing 160 damage. If you have a choice band, that's 190 damage. So you can see how with the addition of Lurantis and Choice Band in the deck and the help of Tapu Koko, Golisopod GX can be hitting some 1-hit knockouts pretty easily. And I think Golisopod is a much more formidable attacker and just a much more threatening deck when you're going to be taking 1-hit knockouts for 1 energy, as opposed to trying to chip away 2-hit knockouts just dealing 120. So I've been the most pleased with this kind of layout of attackers so far. As far as support Pokemon go, of course we have the 2 Tapu Lele GX, obviously fantastic for their Wonder Tag ability. I think 2 is about as low as you want to go in this format. I play 3 in many of my decks post-rotation, but 2 seems to work just fine here. Obviously, since we play double colorless energy, we also have access to Energy Drive, which can come into play, if you don't have a Golisopod set up or a Tapu Koko, or you just need to take a game-winning knockout, you can do that just quickly and easily with double colorless energy. Of course, we have a Oranguru as well. A Oranguru I just love for that instructability, being able to refresh your hand to 3. I've been playing a Oranguru in almost all of my decks, post rotation, just to help you draw out of end to low scenarios and to just keep your deck drawing throughout the course of the game. So that's it for the Pokemon spread. Let's move on and see what supporters we play in this Golisopod deck. As with most decks in the new upcoming standard format, we are going to start out with a fat 4/4 Sycamore and Line. These are the two best draw supporters in the upcoming standard format. Gonna play full suites of both of them since we don't have Versus Seeker anymore to replenish our supporters. Playing 2 copies of Lily. I think Lily is just the next best supporter in line and helps you to draw through your deck. You know, without that Versus Seeker there to lean on, just a nice option to have to refresh your hand to 6. You're not going to use it on the first turn of the game very often, though it is useful to be able to refill your hand to 8 on the first turn of the game. Usually on the first turn, you're going to be wanting to go for that 1-of copy of Bridget, which allows you to search for 3 of your basic Pokemon. Obviously, going to want to get those Wimpods and those Fomantis out early so that you can evolve them up as well. I am playing 3 copies of your boy Guzma in here, which works incredibly in this deck. Not only is Guzma important to be able to bring up any damaged bench threats that you want to knock out with your Golisopod, it's also important for being able to refresh Golisopod's first impression attack. First impression does 120 damage only if it's been coming from the bench to the active position during your turn. Guzma, you can Guzma, you know, if you have Golisopod active, switch into a Tapu Koko promo who has free retreat, and then retreat for free, and then you have satisfied first impressions condition so that you can do more damage again. So not only is Guzma great for a Lysander effect, but it's also great for resetting Golisopod GX's first impression attack. And since you have Tapu Koko, who's that free retreater, it works out very nicely, and you almost never get into situations where Guzma works against you and you can't get your desired attacker into the active. Another incredible supporter we play in this deck is 2 copies of Acerola. And as I've been testing Acerola, Acerola has been proving itself to be an incredible supporter in the upcoming standard format. I think it's great in Gardevoir GX, and it's great in this deck as well. It could be good in just about anything that's got a substantial amount of hit points. Could even see play in Greninja Break, just being able to pick up an entire line of Pokemon and slap it right back down. Goes really well with Golisopod GX since Golisopod only takes 1 energy. So you could just Acerola the Golisopod GX up into your hand, bring the energy with it, completely heal it of any damage that it has taken, and then slap down a new Golisopod right away and continue swinging away with first impression. Not only that, Acerola helps satisfy your switching condition as well. If you Acerola a Golisopod up into your hand, you can promote that Tapu Koko promo, as I said, put that into the active, evolve up into a new Golisopod, retreat for free, and you get the first impression for massive damage again. So Acerola, really, really useful, helps denies your opponent those prize cards, which are so valuable, and just a great card. I think Acerola will be a defining card in the upcoming standard format. I expect a lot of decks to fit at least 2 in, especially if they are kind of this tanky kind of deck like Golisopod is. So that's it for the draw supporters. Let's take a look at the items we play in Golisopod. To start out, we got the 4 copies of Ultra Ball there. Obviously great for setting up your Pokemon, getting Tapu Lele GX. Ultra Balls also kind of work, you know, as being able to activate your draw engine as well, just because they can grab your Tapu Leles. They can also thin your hand out so that you can instruct with an Oranguru for more cards. Just obviously great card. Gonna play 4 of those. And then we do play 4 copies of Switch. Now this might seem a little funny. It's a lot. I've been playing the game long enough to the point where I remember when decks did, you know, some decks did play 4 copies of Switch. You know, I played a lot of Switch in my Mewtwo Eels deck, and it's just a very good card, you know, obviously in combination with Golisopod GX and Tapu Koko. Sometimes all you need to do in order to fire off another big attack is just get that Golisopod back to the bench with a switch, promote your Tapu Koko, and then retreat for free back. And Switch basically just allows you to do that without playing a supporter for turn. And 4 copies may end up being excessive, but hey, like I said, I build decks just to be the most consistent that they can possibly be. You know, maybe you could pinch a Switch for another card or 2, but you know, I promise you, if you play 4 copies of Switch, this deck is going to run amazingly. It's going to run very fluid, and you're never going to be missing your first impression attack for the optimal amount of damage. So I play 4 copies of Switch, love it. I think it works really great with Tapu Koko in combination with Golisopod. Play 2 copies of Field Blower, obviously really good for moving tools from your opponent, fighting Fury Belts, you know, your opponent's stadiums as well. Removing choice bands can be a really big deal to help preserve your Golisopod GX so they don't get knocked out in one hit. Field Blower, just an all-around fantastic card. Gonna be playing 2 of them in most decks coming up at least. And then I play 3 copies of Choice Band and 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher. Choice Band, obviously very good in this deck just for raising Golisopod GX's damage output. I could even see playing a 4th copy just to help you do more damage with Tapu Koko as well, because I found Choice Band goes really well on both of these attackers. Being able to flying flip for 50 to the active and 20 to the bench is an insane attack for just a double colorless energy and is really good. So if I were to try and find another room for a 4th Choice Band, I could definitely see doing that just because it is so valuable on Tapu Koko as well as being valuable on Golisopod GX. Another option I'd been thinking about is adding in a Professor Kukui. However, my issue with Professor Kukui is that Professor Kukui is just much better in the current format rather than next year because you can use Versus Seeker to get it back whenever you want. Only having, you know, 1 or 2 Professor Kukui in deck is not nearly as good when you can't Versus Seeker for it exactly when you want to. So that kind of nerfs Professor Kukui a little bit. You know, maybe you could switch one of your Lily out for Professor Kukui or both of them even if you wanted to try that. You could give it a shot. However, I think probably just finding room for the 4th Choice Band would be better than trying to fit a Professor Kukui in here, just because, like I said, can't Versus Seeker for Professor Kukui anymore. So, as you can see, without Versus Seeker here, item usage is down a whole lot. We even still play 4 copies of Switch, and we only have, what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 items in this deck. So item usage is down a whole lot. Expect Trashalanche Garbodor is not going to be nearly as good next format as it was during the current standard format. As far as energies go, we play 7 copies of Grass to power up that First Impressions attack and 4 copies of Double Colorless in order to power up Flying Flip, and then Golisopod's 2nd attack. Armor Press does 100 damage and then prevents your opponent from doing 20 damage next turn. I mean, their attacks are reduced by 20 the following turn. And then that Crossing Cut GX. Don't want to underestimate how valuable Crossing Cut GX attack is. That is just a really, really good option to have in the middle of the game, early even, just to be able to throw down 180 damage. You can do that with a Choice Band Crossing Cut GX for 180. If you have one of those Lurantis in play, that's 200 damage for just 3 energy. It's absolutely fantastic. And then it operates as that hit and run. You can promote, you know, a Tapu Koko promo. Maybe you just promote a little Wimpod or a Fomantis, just something you don't really care about. And then you've got plenty of Switch in deck to be able to get, you know, whoever you desire next turn out back into the active. So that's it for the energy. You notice we don't play any sort of energy recovery in the deck. We could have opted to play a Super Rod, but I don't think you really need it. I have pinched a Grass energy here once before. So in the testing, I'm kind of between 7 and 6 Grass energy for Golisopod. I think both work. 7 is just your safe count, but you can definitely get away with 6. I've done it, it works. We play 4 copies of Double Colorless just because you really want to get an early Double Colorless on your Tapu Koko promo. That's really valuable, just being able to Flying Flip and spread tons of damage to your opponent's side of the board so that you can clean up shop with Golisopod GX. Without Tapu Koko promo, you know, you don't really need 4 Double Colorless energy just for your Golisopod. Golisopod himself only needs maybe 1 or maybe 2 throughout the course of the game. But the Double Colorless energy work great for that Tapu Koko promo, and that's why we play those. So thank you all for checking out the video. Let me know what you all think about Golisopod GX and the kind of cards that would go well with it in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for listening. Peace.